Hey, this is Dylan from K72, and I'm going to be talking in this advanced topic presentation about race markers and race zones, why you'd use them, when you'd use them. And race markers and race zones are a little bit misunderstood area of Freerace. They are optional, but I'm going to go through here why you want to use them from time to time and how to actually set one up if you do want to use one. So, what is a race zone? Well, a race zone is a square-shaped zone on the course. So you have your location that you've set up, which is maybe a lake or a beach in the ocean. A race zone is a subset of that. It's a square-shaped zone on the course, and it's usually delineated by some kind of physical markers. Sailing outside of the zone results in drop distance. So if you go outside that square zone, then your distance doesn't count, which is obviously a disadvantage when you're trying to go as far as you can in the time allowed for the event. When do you use a zone? Well, you can use one when you're in open ocean, for instance, to ensure that competitors don't wander off too far away from the starting zone. You can use it to confine racing close to shore or to a particular area. You might want to restrict sailors for safety, or you may have other reasons to restrict where they can sail. I'm going to give you a quick example now. So I've got Google Earth here, and in here is our favorite location, Burham Heads. And what you see here is a sandbar configuration at the mouth of a river. So this sandbar and the whole area to the south and east of it is all exposed during low tide and is hazardous to sail over, and it's kind of a marine park as well where dugong and other animals breed. So we may have a permit restriction if we're running a free race here that says we're not permitted to sail in this area. So we're going to enforce that in our theoretical example by saying, okay, well, I want to force people to sail in this zone here. So basically what we want to do is say, okay, I want to draw a box that goes roughly from here to here and then out to, say, here and over to here. And that box is going to be the rough boundary of our event. So as long as you're sailing within this zone, whether you're sailing up here or down here, doesn't matter. As long as you're in this zone, you're okay. But if you stray outside of here, then that travel that you do outside here or down here is not going to count for the purposes of the race. So in this case, we might choose to do that because we don't want people to sail down here. We might have a specific zone that we've been told this is the zone we can sail in. Okay, so how do you delineate? How do you define that zone? We've got a lovely idea of where we want to sail, but how do we actually mark that out? Typically you do it in Freerace Master by using two markers. Those markers can be physical. They might be a buoy or a landmark of some kind, or they could be virtual. That is an arbitrary set of coordinates that you just happen to know or want to enter into the system. Markers may represent the corners or the edges of the zone, and I'll get into that in a little bit when I show you how that works in practice. So where do you find the information about these markers from? You may know the coordinates, and I'll show you in a moment how to look those coordinates up in our particular example using Google Earth. They might be calculated based on the overlay image that you're using. There might be coordinates that you've used in a previous event, so well, it worked last time, we'll use it again this time. They could be retrieved also straight from a GT31 GPS, so you can take your GPS out on the water to where you've got a marker buoy, or out along the sandbar to where you've got a channel marker, and just record the coordinates using the GPS, then come back and the software will read those coordinates out of the GPS for you. The actual process for doing that is out of scope for this talk. But if you're interested in how this is done, drop a line on the forum or send me an email. So that's the end of the presentation end of it. I'll give you a demonstration of what we've talked about now using a combination of Google Earth and the Freerace Master software. First of all, let's drop back into Google Earth for a minute and say, well, how is it that we're going to know where these things are? It may very well be that we have a channel marker here, and we have something distinct on the beach over here. And we could say, okay, those are going to be our two marks. you can see those two marks. As long as you're between those two marks, you're probably okay. Or we might actually want to put a buoy out in the water here and a buoy out in the water here. In this case, we're using edge markers. So one marker sits here in the middle of this edge, and one marker sits here in the middle of this edge. In this case, you might go out in the boat, or you might actually know the coordinates of those markers. They might be existing markers. In our example, I'm gonna steal the coordinates out of Google Earth. But first of all, let's go into Freerace Master, which is over here, and we're going to create a new event. So, new event, and we're going to use Burham as our location, and all we've been talking about happens under this markers button here. So you can see the button up in the corner, markers, and that's where we're working. So in markers, you can see that we've got two sections, marker A and marker B. And for each marker, we're going to select a marker type. The marker type is where does the information about the marker come from. Is that marker automatically calculated based on the overlay image? Is it something that's manually entered? Is it something that you've imported from a GT31? Or are you copying it from a previous event? If I pick automatic, which is what we did in our demonstration video of how to set up an event, then you select whole overlay. What that's basically doing is saying marker A is here. It goes right to the middle of this edge and sticks it right there. If you do the same for marker B, it goes to the middle of the right-hand edge and sticks a marker there. So you basically end up with a big square that goes all the way across this image. Okay, so instead of doing that, we're going to select enter, and we're going to enter a manual latitude and longitude in here. This is what you'd do if you'd been at the beach and you'd gone out in the boat and recorded a waypoint using a different GPS and written down some coordinates, or you just happen to know the coordinates for some way. So we're going to pop back into Google Earth so I can find out the coordinates. I'm going to run this a little bit closer to the beach, just so that it's a bit more visible. I'm going to bring my pretend square here. I'm going to say, okay, what we want is we want to have this point here and this point here. We're going to use edge markers. So I'm going to use the place mark tool to drop a place mark here, and we're going to get our coordinates like that. Now I look up here, and the coordinates by default in Google Earth are in degrees, minutes, and seconds, and that's not good. We want to have it in decimal degrees. So this is a quick setting that I'll show you how to change here. You go to Tools and Options, and under Show Lat Long here, we change it to decimal degrees. So you see that? Show Lat Long, decimal degrees. The default is degrees, minutes, seconds. Okay, so change to decimal degrees, and I'm going to drop that place mark again. The place mark goes into spot here, and we've got a latitude. I can Alt-Tab and paste the latitude in here. I've left the degree symbol off. Technically it doesn't matter, but it used to cause problems in the program, so I just automatically leave it out. So we've got the marker A, and we're going to enter coordinates for marker B. So for marker B, I'm just going to drag my place mark up here, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to put it here. Well, let's put it on the beach. So there's our latitude and our longitude, and we save that. Okay, and you see here it's drawn the two markers. The red one is marker A, the green one is marker B, and they're drawn on the map as edge markers. If I wanted to use them as corner markers instead, I can flick this option here, and now they're two opposite corners. We've found in practice that we very, very rarely use corner markers. Edge markers make more sense, and you typically set them up across the course of the wind. So this would be a good position to have your markers if there was a northeasterly or southwesterly breeze. The effect then is that people sail between the two buoys, or between the two marks, backwards and forwards. Okay, so there we are. We've got our markers set. If we want to reset a marker, we might want to set that marker B to be to be an automatic one from the whole overlay, I just leave marker A alone and just set marker B. It'll just set the marker B value, and now the marker B is in the middle of the right hand side of the page over here. Hit corner, and you can see that's exactly where it is. So now we've defined a completely different zone for sailing. Once you select a date and save an event, that's all locked in stone. So sometimes you're setting this stuff up the night before when you know that you're going to have a huge zone. Sometimes you're setting it up on the day of the event. Sometimes you might have events running over several days with the same buoys in the same places, in which case you can kind of set up these things ahead of time. But sometimes it just has to be set up on the day. Okay, I hope that's helpful, and I hope that's useful to you. I know in a lot of situations, like when we're using a lake, like Lake Tharabar, let's try the one that actually has an image. Land provides a perfectly good physical boundary in a lake-based situation. So in this case, you almost always just set the markers up to be automatic, just like we did in the demo. And now we've got a zone that covers the whole of the screen. I can make that an edge-based zone, and it extends north and south off the image in a large square. Alright, hope that's useful to you. Hope you get some use out of it. After you've set up an image, you can see the size of that zone as well. Gives you some idea of the sailing area that people have got to work in. Lake Tharabar is 11.5 kilometers on a side. It's a little bit big to police. So sometimes you might want to set up a zone inside even a lake situation. Try it out, see how you go. If anyone, as I say, is interested in knowing exactly how to import waypoints from a GT31, just let me know. Okay, I'm Dylan, and I'll see you again in another video.